The air in the dining room of Ethan's parents' house in Greenwich was thick with the smell of herb-crusted prime rib and unspoken expectations. It was Sunday, the sacred Evans family dinner, a ritual I'd endured for 3 years. 3 years of Margaret's thinly veiled critiques on my career, so quaint, playing with fabrics all day, Coraline, and Harold's disengaged grunts from behind the Wall Street Journal. My husband, Ethan, sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee at a familiar, proprietary weight. The plates were being cleared when Brandon, Ethan's younger brother, could no longer contain his glee. So, the final numbers are in for the wedding, he announced, puffing his chest. Venue at the plaza, the band, the flowers from that boutique in Soho, the 5-tier cake, the open bar upgrade, the honeymoon suite in Bora Bora. It's coming in at a cool 1.9 million. Harold finally lowered his newspaper, his brows shooting towards his hairline. Dad, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event for me and Chloe, Brandon said, as if explaining basic arithmetic to a child. Quality has its price. A low whistle escaped Ethan. He was a corporate lawyer, successful in his own right. But even he knew the absurdity of that figure for a 25-year-old marketing associate and his elementary school teacher fiancé. 1.9 million. Brandon, who's footing that? Did you finally sell a kidney? Margaret gave a light, tinkling laugh, the sound of ice in a glass. Don't be dramatic. Ethan, we've discussed this. The family helps. It's what we do. Her eyes, the color of chilled steel, swept over Harold, who immediately found his napkin fascinating, then landed on me for a fraction of a second too long before settling on her golden boy. Your father and I are covering a significant portion. Of course. And Brandon has his savings. My savings cover the rehearsal dinner lobster tails. Mom, Brandon corrected with a grin, utterly devoid of shame. It was part of his charm, this buoyant audacity. Ethan's fingers tightened on my knee. Okay, so you and Dad are covering what? Half? Even that's a massive hit. And the rest? Alone? The interest on that. The rest? Margaret interrupted. Her voice smooth as polished marble. Is handled. She took a slow sip of her Pinot Noir, her gaze now fixed steadily, calmly, on me, a cold trickle, the first warning of an avalanche. Traced down my spine. Handled how? Ethan pressed. He was logical, procedural. A problem needed a defined solution. Brandon doesn't have that kind of collateral. This isn't some corporate merger. Mom, this is real debt. The room went quiet. Harold studied the grain of the mahogany table. Brandon suddenly found the pattern on the china riveting. Margaret set her glass down with a precise click. Ethan, really, must we talk numbers like barbarians? It's family. She smiled, a gesture that didn't reach her eyes. The arrangements are made. The deposits are paid. The primary contract for the venue and the major vendors. She paused, letting the silence stretch. They're under Coraline's name. Her credit is excellent. The billing is set to go to her. The words didn't compute at first. They hung in the fragrant air, nonsensical, like words in a foreign language. I felt Ethan's hand go rigid, then slowly lift from my leg. What? The word was flat, torn from Ethan's throat. I'm sorry, I heard myself say, my voice strangely calm, detached. Under my name? Margaret's smile widened. A predator with the trap sprung. Well, of course, dear, your business is doing so wonderfully. All those luxury condo projects. And your credit line is formidable, much stronger than ours. Frankly, after Harold's unfortunate hedge last year, and Ethan's tied up with the firm's partnership liabilities, your family, the strongest financial pillar we have. She said it as if bestowing a crown. It's just a formality. The bills will come to you, and we'll settle everything behind the scenes. It's simpler this way. The cold trickle became a flood, freezing me in my seat. my business, my credit, my name. I looked at Ethan, my husband, waiting for the explosion, for the protective fury, for the absolutely not. It didn't come. His face was a mask of stunned confusion, rapidly cycling through emotions. Shock, dawning understanding, a flicker of shame, and then a hardening resignation. Mom, he started, his voice low. You can't just put a $2 million wedding in Coraline's name without discussing it with us. With her. Discuss what? Margaret's tone turned, lightly chiding. Ethan, don't be difficult. We're all family. Coraline Ison Evans. What's hers is ours in times of need. Isn't that what marriage is? A partnership? Brandon needs this. The Canellis are Chloe's family. We have certain social expectations to meet. She turned her steel gaze back to me. You understand, don't you, Coraline? It's for the family, for Brandon's future. All eyes were on me now. Harold's held a faint apology, drowned in impotence. Brandon's were bright with hope and entitlement. Margaret's were challenging, confident, and Ethan's were pleading. Don't make a scene. They screamed. Just agree. We'll fix this later. The pillar of the family. The strong credit. I felt like a financial instrument, a human co-signer, not a person, not his wife. No, I said, the word clear and sharp in the opulent room. I don't understand. Margaret, you committed me, my name, to a nearly $2 million debt for a party without my knowledge or consent. That's not a formality. That's fraud. Margaret's smile didn't falter, but it turned brittle. Such a strong word. Coraline, it's a favor. For family. Surely you're not that selfish? Selfish? The detachment shattered. Selfish is planning a wedding you can't afford and signing someone else up to pay for it. Coraline. Ethan's voice cut in. Firm. The lawyer voice he used in mediation. Not here. Not like this. His hand touched my arm. A gesture meant to soothe, but feeling like a restraint. Then where? Ethan? I pulled my arm away, staring at him. And how? Did you know about this? Of course not. He snapped, but the flicker in his eyes betrayed him. Not the details, perhaps, but the expectation, the notion that my resources were communal property, to be tapped for Evans' family emergencies. And evidently, a luxury wedding qualified. It's done. Coraline, Margaret said, finality in her tone. The contracts are signed. Backing out would embarrass Brandon and Chloe beyond repair. It would ruin the wedding. Is that what you want? To be the reason this family is humiliated in front of everyone. The manipulation was textbook, heavy-handed, and yet it landed in the fertile soil of a lifetime of my own training to be agreeable. To not rock the boat. I saw Brandon's face fall, a parody of heartbreak. I saw Harold shrink further. I saw Ethan looking at me, not with solidarity, but with a desperate, silent pressure to capitulate, to be a team player. His team. The car ride back to our Manhattan apartment was a mobile tomb. The silence was a physical presence, swollen with everything unsaid. Ethan, I finally said, my voice raw. How could you let that happen? I didn't let anything happen, he replied, gripping the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the taillights ahead. I had no idea she'd already put it in your name. I knew they were talking about us helping, maybe guaranteeing a loan. But you weren't surprised. I accused. You didn't tell her to go to hell. You told me to calm down. Because causing a scene at my parents' dinner table doesn't help. He shot back. We need to handle this logically, privately. Handle what? The fact that I'm apparently on the hook for $2 million? How do we handle that? Ethan, do you have $1 million I don't know about? Because I sure as hell don't. We'll figure it out, he said, the phrase hollow and infuriating. It's family. We can't just abandon Brandon. My parents, they're under pressure. My dad's investments, it's complicated. Complicated? A bitter laugh escaped me. Your mother committed fraud in my name. That's not complicated. That's a crime. And you're worried about their pressure? What do you want me to do? Coraline? He exploded, the calm facade cracking. Sue my mother? Crash my brother's wedding? Is that the solution? Tear this family apart over money? Over my money? My future? My credit? I shouted back. Why is their family more important than our marriage? Than me? He didn't answer. The rest of the drive passed in a suffocating silence. The question hung between us, unanswered, because the answer was suddenly, terrifyingly clear, back in our sleek, minimalist apartment, that a space I designed, paid for with the first big royalty from a flagship project that the chasm widened. Ethan went straight to the bar, pouring 2 fingers of scotch. Look, he said, his back to me, voice now coated in a practiced, reasonable tone. We'll talk to Mom tomorrow. We'll get the details. Maybe it's just the initial deposits. Maybe we can restructure it, get it into a family LLC, something. But for now, we have to play along. The wedding is in 6 weeks. We can't blow it up now. Play along. I repeated, the words ash in my mouth. So I just what? Smile and nod while bills with my name on them for a wedding I didn't want roll in. He turned, his face a mask of strained patience. Just for now. Trust me. I'll handle my family. But you have to trust me. Don't do anything rash. His eyes searched mine, looking for the compliant wife, the woman who always deferred to his judgment, who believed he had everything under control. I said nothing. The trust, that fragile, essential thing, lay in shards on the imported Italian floor. That night, I lay beside him in our king-sized bed, a canyon of crisp linen between us. He fell into a fitful sleep, his breathing eventually evening out. I stared at the ceiling, the events of the evening replaying on a cruel loop. Margaret's smug face, Brandon's entitlement, Ethan's silence, his plea, his ultimate betrayal of inaction. I slipped out of bed, padded to my home office, and opened my laptop. The glow of the screen was the only light. I found the file, the one I'd barely glanced at when Margaret had airily forwarded it weeks ago. Titled Wedding Overview, FYI. I'd thought it was just a schedule. I opened it, scrolled past the font choices and floral arrangements, to the appendix, the summary of contracts and financial commitments. There it was, on the signature lines for the primary venue, the caterer, the band, the 3 largest expenses, totaling over $1.2 million. Not Margaret Evans, not Harold Evans, not even Brandon Evans, Coraline Evans, my married name, my social security number, which they must have gotten from some family emergency form Ethan had casually asked me to fill out months ago. A phantom weight, cold and leaden, settled in the pit of my stomach. It wasn't just a suggestion. It wasn't a request. It was a fait accompli. They had already spent the money. In my name, I minimized the document. On the screen, a new email notification glowed. The subject line, Urgent. Plaza final contract invoice for Evans/Connolly nuptials. Action required. I didn't open it. I just sat there, in the dark, the silence of the apartment screaming in my ears, the silence of my husband in the next room, the silence of my own complicity, built over years of wanting to belong, to be a good wife, to be part of the family. The screen's light reflected in the dark window, showing me the ghost of my own pale, stunned face, the face of a woman who had just been sold, quite efficiently, by her own family. The bill had arrived, and the silence, I realized with a chilling certainty, was just the beginning. The silence didn't break with the morning light. It hardened, crystallizing into a new, fragile layer of normalcy. Ethan acted as if the previous night's dinner was a minor, unpleasant bump in the road, already smoothed over. He made coffee, the rich aroma a bitter contrast to the acid churning in my gut. We'll figure this out today, he said, handing me a mug, his fingers brushing mine. A calculated touch. I'll call Mom after my 10 a.m. conference call. We'll get the full picture. Move things around. It's going to be fine. Coraline. Fine. The word was a blanket he kept trying to throw over a grenade. I took the mug, saying nothing. My eyes felt gritty from lack of sleep, but my mind was terrifyingly clear. I watched him move through our apartment, my apartment, bought with a commission from the Delaney Penthouse project before we'd merged finances. He looked the part of the successful Manhattan lawyer. Tailored suit, confident posture, the easy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes this morning. My husband, the man who had watched his mother sign away my financial future and told me not to make a scene. What's the plan, Ethan? I asked, my voice deliberately flat. Specifically, what are you going to say to her? He sighed, the put-upon sigh of a man dealing with an irrational child. I'm going to get the details of all the contracts. See exactly what's in your name. Then, we'll look at our assets. See how we can best support Brandon. Maybe we take a home equity line against this place. The valuation's gone up. Or you could draw against your business credit. It's a temporary bridge loan. Essentially, for family. Each word was a tiny hammer, nailing the lid shut on my coffin. Our assets. This place. Your business credit. The assimilation was complete. In his mind, in the Evans family playbook, there was no mine anymore. It was all communal property, to be deployed at Margaret's decree. A $2 million bridge loan for a wedding. I stated, not questioned, with no discussion, no agreement, just presumption. Coraline, he said, setting his cup down with a sharp click. What do you want me to do? Let my brother's wedding collapse? Humiliate my parents? They're my family. The subtext hung in the air, louder than his words. And you're just the wife, the resource. Assimilate. I need to go to the studio, I said, turning away before he could see the fury in my eyes. The studio, my space, the one thing in the city that still carried only my name. Coraline Shaw Design. We'll talk tonight, he called after me, his tone already shifting to the dismissive one he used for settled matters. It'll work out. You'll see. I didn't answer. The elevator ride down felt like a descent from a gilded prison tower. Outside, the chaotic energy of New York was a shock to the system. I walked, aimlessly at first, then with purpose toward Soho, where my studio occupied a sunny, quiet corner on the third floor of a cast-iron building. But I didn't go in. Instead, I texted Sophia, me, need air, and truth. Lunch? Now. Sophia, trouble in paradise, usual spot, 20 minutes. Sophia Velasquez, my best friend since Parsons, was a force of nature and a divorce attorney with a preternatural radar for bullshit. Our usual spot was a cramped, noisy Cuban diner where no one from Ethan's world would ever be caught dead. I got there first, clutching my coffee like a lifeline. She arrived in a swirl of black cashmere and sharp perfume, sliding into the booth opposite me. Her dark eyes scanned my face instantly, missing nothing. Whoa, you look like you've seen a ghost, or signed a deal with one. Which is it? The story tumbled out of me in a low, tense rush to the dinner. The number, Margaret's calm declaration, Ethan's silence, the contract in my name. I showed her the email on my phone. The action required subject line burning like a brand. Sophia listened, not eating, her expression shifting from concern to incredulity to cold. Professional fury. When I finished, she let out a long, slow whistle. Jesus. Coco. They didn't just cross a line. They nuked it from orbit and billed it to your Amex. He says we'll figure it out. A home equity line. My business credit. We will figure it out. Sophia's laugh was harsh. You won't be figuring out shit. You will be paying for your fuck-up of a brother-in-law's fantasy camp wedding. And Ethan will be holding your hand while you sign your financial life away. She leaned forward. This wasn't a surprise to him. Not the scale. Maybe. But the expectation? Please. This is a pattern. Coraline, you just finally saw the price tag. A pattern? The family fund. She prompted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The temporary loan for his dad's can't-miss investment last year? The way your joint vacations always seem to align with his parents' anniversary in Tuscany, and the shared account always covers the villa? A cold, knot tightened in my stomach. The memories, previously viewed through the soft focus lens of marital compromise, snapped into a new, harsh clarity 6 months after the wedding. Ethan, looking stressed. My dad's in a bind. Honey, this investment opportunity came up. Time sensitive. He just needs a bridge until the quarterly returns. Can we cover 100 grand? From the savings? It'll be back in 60 days. With interest. I'd hesitated. It was a big chunk of our liquid safety net. It's for family. Coraline. He'd do it for us. And I'd agreed. The money had never come back. When I'd asked, months later, Ethan had gotten defensive. It's complicated. The market shifted. He's good for it. Don't nickel and dime my father. It's embarrassing. Then, the joint account. His idea for simplicity. All our income. His handsome salary. My more variable, but substantial design fees that would go into one pot. All bills paid from there. A real partnership. He'd said, kissing my forehead. I'd felt loved, unified, but Sophia had warned me, just keep your business account separate. Coco, for taxes, for sanity, I'd compromised, letting a portion of my income flow to the joint account for household expenses, but keeping the main business account in my name, a decision that had caused the first real fight of our marriage. Why are you keeping things separate? Ethan had asked, genuinely hurt. Don't you trust me? Aren't we a team? My parents have shared everything for 30 years. It's not about trust. It's about business practicality. I'd argued, feeling strangely defensive. What if I need to make a big purchase for the studio? Get a new line of credit? Our credit, he'd corrected gently. And we can discuss big purchases. That's what partners do. The discussions had always ended with me conceding, not wanting to seem mercenary, to be the one building walls in our partnership. Gradually, more of my income had been funneled into the team account, the account that paid for the Greenwich House upgrades, the country club membership for his parents, the family trips. I've been an idiot, I whispered, the realization a physical blow. No, Sophia said firmly. You've been gaslit by a master and his grand dame of a mother. They saw a successful, independent woman with great credit and no predatory family of her own. And they saw a resource. Ethan didn't marry you despite your success. Honey, he married you because of it. You're his family's upgrade plan. The words were brutal, and they rang with a terrible truth. Our courtship, once a fairy tale, now looked like a carefully orchestrated merger. The handsome, charming lawyer from a good, but cash-poor family, sweeping the self-made designer off her feet, integrating her, absorbing her assets. What do I do? Soph, first, you do not, under any circumstances, agree to anything. You do not sign any more documents. You do not restructure that debt into your name more comfortably. You freeze. You play dumb. If you have to. Her legal mind was whirring. Second, you get access to everything. The joint account statements for the last 3 years. His personal accounts, if you can. Credit reports. Any documents related to this wedding. You need to see the full scope of the infection. He'll never give that to me. Then you find another way. She said, her gaze level. This isn't about marital spying anymore. Coco, this is financial self-defense. He and his family have already declared war on your solvency. You need intelligence. She paused. And you need to start thinking about an exit strategy. The word exit hung between us. Terrifying and seductive. I can't just leave. Not today. She agreed. But you need to know if you can, and what it will cost you. Start by finding those numbers. I spent the afternoon at my studio, but the soothing textures of fabric swatches and the clean lines of my architectural drawings offered no comfort. My mind was a spreadsheet of betrayal. When Ethan texted that he was working late, a familiar excuse that now felt sinister, I went home to the empty apartment. I started in his study, a room I rarely disturbed. I was methodical, careful not to disturb the pristine order he kept. The filing cabinet was locked. His laptop was password protected, a combination of our dog's name and his birth year, a code I knew, a vestige of trust, one now weaponized. My hands trembled as I opened it. I felt sick, violating. But Sophia's words echoed. Financial self-defense. I found the joint account first. The last 3 months of statements. I scrolled, my heart hammering against my ribs. There were the expected withdrawals. Mortgage, utilities, my studio rent. Then, the others. Large, recurring transfers to an account labeled Evans FAM. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. A single $25,000 transfer in December. Memo. Loan repayment, Harold. The repayment was a sick joke. There was no corresponding deposit. Then, I saw the most recent ones. 2 days ago, $50,000 to Plaza Hotel deposit. $30,000 to Belle Fleur floral design. $15,000 to Savoir Band retainer. All from our joint account, my money, earned from months of work. Siphoned away to pay for Brandon's fantasy. Authorized by Ethan J. Evans. The room swam. I gripped the edge of the desk. He hadn't just known. He'd already started paying. With our money. Without a word to me. The door clicked open. Footsteps in the hallway. I quickly closed the laptop, sliding the chair back just as Ethan appeared in the study doorway. He looked tired, but his face softened into a smile that no longer reached me. Hey, you're home. I'm beat. He loosened his tie. Talk to Mom. I schooled my features into what I hoped was neutral concern. And he came in, perching on the edge of the desk, a familiar, intimate pose that now felt like an invasion. It's a mess, but it's manageable. The contracts are ironclad. In your name. Backing out would incur penalties that are almost as bad as paying it. He rubbed his temples. But here's the plan. We use the home equity line. The interest is deductible. We cover, say, $1 million. My parents will cover the rest from the sale of their Nantucket place that it's been on the market. It's just timing. We bridge the gap. We, the royal we that meant me. And if the Nantucket place doesn't sell before the bills are due? I asked, my voice miraculously steady. Then we carry it a little longer. Coraline, it's Brandon's wedding. My parents' reputation. This is what family does. He reached for my hand. His was warm. Mine was ice. I need you on my team here. I can't fight my family and fight with you. Please. The plea, the emotional blackmail, wrapped in the language of partnership. I looked into his eyes, the same eyes I'd fallen in love with, and I saw a stranger, a strategist, a negotiator closing a deal. What about my business? I whispered. My credit? Taking on that much debt, it could limit my ability to get trade lines, to expand. Our business, he corrected softly, squeezing my hand. And we'll be fine. My partnership track is solid. In a year or two, this will be a blip, a story we tell about crazy wedding expenses. But we have to get through it, together. He leaned in, his forehead almost touching mine. Can you do that? For me? For us? The full weight of the gilded cage settled around me. The walls were made of his expectations, his family's entitlement, and my own desire to be loved. To be part of something. Saying no now meant tearing it all down. It meant war. I saw the statements in my mind. The transfers. The $50,000 deposit he'd already made. The lock on the filing cabinet. The password on the laptop I'd just broken. I made a choice. Not the final choice, but the first one. I forced my fingers to relax in his. I let my shoulders slump. a picture of defeated resignation. I met his gaze and offered a tiny, fragile nod. Okay, Ethan. I breathed, the perfect picture of a wife yielding under pressure. For the family, we'll figure it out. Relief flooded his face. He pulled me into a hug, his chin resting on my head. Thank you, honey. I knew I could count on you. You won't regret this. Over his shoulder, my eyes were open, dry, and cold. I stared at the locked filing cabinet across the room. No, I thought, the resolve hardening into something sharp and unyielding in my core. But you will. The performance had begun. The obedient wife would play her part, but the woman inside her, Coraline Shaw, had just started reading the rule book. And the first rule was, know exactly what you're up against. I'd seen the money. Now, I needed the rest. The emails, the plans, the truth behind the team. The cage was gilded, but it was still a cage. And for the first time, I was seriously looking for the lock. Playing the part of the compliant wife was like wearing a suit of wet wool. Heavy, suffocating, and chilling to the core. I smiled at Ethan over breakfast, nodded as he outlined his plan to consolidate the wedding debt, and agreed to a dinner with his parents that weekend to go over the details amicably. My performance was worthy of a Tony. Inside, I was a vault, ceiling shut. My first move was logistical. I called my business bank, feigning concern about possible fraudulent activity on my personal credit. I placed temporary alerts and extra security flags on all my accounts and credit lines, making any new large withdrawals or applications require a direct phone confirmation from me. A small firewall. My second move was intelligence. Ethan's laptop was a treasure trove, but I needed sustained access. Not risky. Hurried sessions in his study. The solution came from an unexpected place. Our shared cell phone plan. A few days after the fateful dinner, as Ethan was getting ready for work, he cursed, hurling his phone onto the bed. Piece of junk. The port's completely dead. I've got a critical depot today. I can't be unreachable. An idea, cold and clear, formed. Take my old one, I said, my voice all practical concern. I dug out my previous model from a drawer. It's unlocked. You can just swap your SIM. I'll get yours to the Genius Bar today. He looked at me, surprised, then grateful. You're a lifesaver. Cora. He pulled me in for a kiss. It tasted like toothpaste and betrayal. He popped his SIM card out of the dead phone and into my old one. Just have them fix it. Don't let them wipe it. I have case files on there. Of course, I said, pocketing the dead phone. Its inert weight feeling like a live grenade. As soon as he left, I went to a dingy, third-party phone repair shop 10 blocks away. Not an Apple store. Just need the data recovered and a new charging port. Can you do it without a wipe? I asked the bored-looking technician. Yeah, but it'll take a few hours. And it's cash. Fine. I paid up front. For hours later, I had his phone, fully functional. That night, I handed it back to him. The good wife who'd taken care of a problem. He barely glanced at it, grunting his thanks as he scrolled through emails. My old phone, with his active SIM card inside, was now in my purse. A perfect clone. Every call, every text, would come to him and to the phone I controlled. The real work began after he fell asleep. Exhausted from the stress of managing his family's financial implosion, I'd wait for the rhythmic sound of his breathing, then slip into my walk-in closet, closing the door, working by the dim light of my phone screen. The first nights were a slog. His emails were a morass of legal briefs, firm gossip, and golf outings. I was about to give up, thinking I was paranoid, when I found it, not in his primary inbox, but in a folder labeled Tax Docs Old, an email chain with Margaret. The subject, Brandon Wedding, Financing Strategy. My blood turned to ice as I read. From Margaret Evans. To Ethan Evans. Date 8 months ago. Ethan spoke with Brandon. Chloe's parents are expecting a plaza-level event. We cannot look like we can't keep up. Harold's situation is unchanged. Do not discuss with Coraline. The Nantucket sale is stagnant. We need a new solution. Your wife's design firm is thriving. Her personal credit score is 815. Per the last prenup review, a necessary evil, but useful now. Her debt-to-income is negligible since her business assets aren't fully leveraged. The venue requires a primary signatory with a net worth over 2M or equivalent credit. We do not qualify. She does. The approach must be careful. She responds to family and partnership. Frame it as a temporary bridge, a show of solidarity. We handle the ask. You handle the yes. This is for Brandon. For the family. We all must make sacrifices. From Ethan Evans. To Margaret Evans. Brandon wedding. Financing strategy. Mom. Understood. The credit lines are there. I've been gradually merging more of her business cash flow into our joint accounts. She's resistant to full consolidation, but the sentiment is effective. I'll initiate the family emergency narrative next month. The key is presenting it as a done necessity, not a request. She'll balk at a request. She'll feel obligated to a fait accompli for family harmony. We'll handle Coraline. You handle the vendors. Use her business name, Coraline Shaw Design, and her social for the credit apps. It's cleaner. I stared at the screen, the glow illuminating my trembling hands. The cold, calculating language. She responds to family and partnership. Handle the yes. A done necessity. They've been planning this for 8 months. Longer. The gradual merging of my finances. The family emergency narrative. It was all a strategy, a play, and I was the mark. The nausea rose, bitter and hot. I scrolled down. More emails, spreadsheets attached, budgets, my name, my social security number, my business EIN, listed as financial guarantor on vendor contracts. They'd even discussed which vendors would be less likely to run a hard credit check initially. Then, a newer email from 3 weeks ago, from Margaret Evans. To Ethan Evans. Progress. The contracts are signed. All major vendors secured under C's credentials. First draws completed. She remains unaware. P.S. How is Lauren? Still an agreeable distraction? Do keep that separate. We can't have complications. Lauren. The name was a punch to the solar plexus. A distraction. An agreeable distraction. I forgot to breathe. The walls of the closet pressed in, with fingers gone numb. I searched his email. Nothing under Lauren. I searched his texts on the cloned phone. Deleted threads were harder, but not impossible if you knew where to look. I didn't. I felt a surge of frantic, hopeless rage. Then, I remembered something. Years ago, early in our dating life, Ethan had forgotten a password for an old gaming account. He'd used a password recovery option, an old, defunct AOL email address, E_Evans92 at AOL.com. He'd laughed about it, calling it his digital fossil. Nothing important goes there, he'd said, on a whim. Late one night, sitting on the closet floor, I went to the AOL login page. I typed the email. For the password, I tried variations of things I knew. His childhood dog's name, his college frat, his mother's maiden name. Nothing. An agreeable distraction. Feeling sick. I typed. Lauren 1. Incorrect. I tried. I love Lauren. Incorrect. I almost gave up. Then, a dark, cynical thought. He reused patterns. His main password was our dog's name, plus his birth year. What was a pattern that involved me? That he'd find ironically safe? A password for a secret email he thought no one would ever check? I typed. Coraline sucks 1. The inbox loaded. The world did not so much shatter as dissolve into a silent, howling void. There were hundreds of emails, sent mostly from this account to an address, lauren.mitchell@ The subject lines were innocuous. Re-meeting notes. Doc for review. The bodies were anything but. From E_Evans 92. To Lauren.Mitchell. Hey you. Stuck in another interminable family strategy session. Dreaming of being stuck with you instead. Last weekend was incredible. You ruined me for anyone else. From Lauren.Mitchell. To E_Evans 92. I miss you too. This secrecy is killing me. When do I get to have you all to myself? Your wife doesn't appreciate you. She's just using you for stability. I see the real you. From E_Evans 92. To Lauren.Mitchell. Soon. My love. The situation here is complicated. Financial entanglements. Once the Brandon wedding mess is settled and the family liquidity is secured, I can start untangling myself. She's emotionally fragile. It has to be done carefully. The emails went back 18 months. 18 months. They'd met at a legal conference. She was a freelance consultant. She understood the pressure he was under. She thought his wife was a social climbing artist who didn't support his ambitions. They had a pied terra in the West Village, paid for from an account I didn't recognize. There were plans, discussions of a future. He complained about me.my independence, my unnecessary spending on my studio, my reluctance to fully fund his father's schemes. He called me the Shaw account to her. Securing it was a complex merger. Exiting would require a structured divestment. The final email I opened was from a week ago. From E_Evans 92. To Lauren.Mitchell. The pressure is on. The wedding bills are coming due. My mother has accelerated the timeline. C is balking, but I'll manage her. It's all about applying the right kind of pressure. Guilt, family duty, the usual levers. Once her credit is fully leveraged for this, she'll be more pliable for everything. Hang in there. The finish line is in sight. Then we can be together, properly. I sat in the dark closet for a long time. The phone's light had long since auto-dimmed. I felt nothing at first. A hollow, ringing numbness. Then, a wave of something so profound it had no name, a fusion of rage, grief, humiliation, and a terrifying, clarifying ice. He wasn't just using me for my money. He was mocking me for it. He was planning his escape with his agreeable distraction once my financial utility was maximized and exhausted. I was a business deal, a liquidity event. The Shaw account. The tears didn't come. Instead, a cold, meticulous calm descended. I took screenshots. I forwarded key emails to a secure, new encrypted account I created. I downloaded attachments. I documented everything. My fingers steady, my mind operating with a surgical focus I didn't know I possessed. The heartbroken woman was buried under an avalanche of evidence. In her place rose someone else, someone with nothing left to lose. The next morning, I called Sophia. My voice was flat, devoid of inflection. I need to see you. Today. At your office. Coco, what's wrong? You sound. I have everything. I said, cutting her off. The financials, the emails, the plan, and the other woman. I have it all. There was a beat of stunned silence on the other end. Then, Sophia's voice. All business. Don't say another word. Not on the phone. Be here at noon. Side entrance. And, Coraline, yes, bring it all. Sophia's law office was all modern coolness and intimidating silence. In her private conference room, I laid it out. Printed sheets of the joint account statements, with the transfers highlighted. Printed emails between Ethan and Margaret, detailing their strategy. And finally, the printouts from the AOL account. The words agreeable distraction and structured divestment screaming up from the page. Sophia read in silence, her face a mask of professional composure, though I saw a muscle tick in her jaw. When she finished the last page, she leaned back, steepling her fingers. Well, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. They didn't just screw you. They built a fucking assembly line for it. What do I do? My voice was a whisper. What do you want to do? She countered, her eyes sharp. This. She tapped the pages about Lauren. Changes the game. This isn't just financial fraud or coercion. This is a pattern of deception that lays the groundwork for an exceptionally favorable divorce. He's been dissipating marital assets, their income, to support his family's lifestyle and his mistress. He's conspired to commit fraud. The prenup you signed is borderline unenforceable given this level of bad faith. And I'd eat my bar card if we couldn't get it thrown out. I looked at the evidence, spread out like a map of my own betrayal. I want to burn it all down, I said, and the words felt true, felt good. I want him to feel what I feel. I want his mother to choke on her family rhetoric. I want to walk away with every single penny I brought into that marriage and half of everything he pretends is his. A slow, fierce smile spread across Sophia's face. Now you're talking, but we don't burn it down recklessly. We conduct a controlled demolition. She leaned forward. Here's what we do. You go home. You play the part, better than ever. You are the supportive, if slightly stressed, wife. You agree to the home equity line. You express concern, but you agree. What? I couldn't hide my shock. You let them think they've won. You let them get comfortable. You let Ethan believe you're pliable, that his levers are working. Meanwhile, we use the time. We file, but we don't serve yet. We get a forensic accountant. We trace every cent. We document the hell out of the fraud. We find out everything about Lauren. We build a case so airtight, so devastating, that when we finally pull the trigger, they won't know what hit them. Her eyes glittered. You wanted a war. Coco, this is it. But we fight it on our terms, in our time. And the first rule of war is, never let the enemy know you're coming. I looked at the emails, at the word pliable. I thought of Ethan's smug relief when I'd pretended to yield. Okay, I said, the ice in my core spreading, solidifying into a new foundation. I can be pliable. I stood up, gathering the damning papers. The shattered, weeping woman was gone. In her stood someone else. Someone with a vault full of secrets and a plan that was just beginning. Just one thing. Soph, name it. When the time comes, I said, my voice perfectly, deadly calm. I want to be the one to tell him. Playing the part of the supportive wife, the pliable asset, was now the most challenging design project of my life. I was the architect, and the blueprint was deception. Every morning, I'd wake up next to a stranger, a man who kissed my cheek and called me honey while plotting my financial ruin with his mistress, and I'd smile back, a perfect, fragile curve of the lips. My first move was to engage. The next Sunday dinner at the Evans house was a study in high-stakes theater. I wore a soft cream sweater, a costume of vulnerability. I let my hands tremble slightly as I passed the platter of roast chicken. How are you holding up, dear? Margaret asked, her voice dripping with syrup-soaked concern. This must be so stressful for you. All these tedious financial matters. I set my fork down, making a show of taking a steadying breath. It's a lot, I admitted, letting my voice waver just enough. I've been going over the numbers Ethan gave me. The scale of it. Ethan tensed beside me. I placed a calming hand on his arm, a performance of unity. I know it's overwhelming. I continued, looking at Margaret, then Harold, finally letting my gaze rest on Brandon's oblivious, cheerful face. But Ethan's right. It's family. Brandon's wedding. It's once in a lifetime. I infused the words with a sacrificial resolve. We'll make it work. The shift in the room was palpable. Margaret's eyes, previously sharp with assessment, softened with triumph. Harold gave a gruff nod of approval. Brandon beamed. Thanks. Sis, I knew you'd come through. Chloe's dad was getting all weird about the band's rider, but I told him, my brother and his wife have it handled. Ethan squeezed my knee under the table. a gesture of gratitude and ownership. I fought the urge to recoil. We do, I said softly, but to do this properly, to get the best terms on the home equity line and any other financing, the bank will need a complete picture. All the contracts, the payment schedules, everything with my name on it. They'll want to see the direct liabilities. I looked at Margaret, my expression open, helpful. If I could get copies of everything you've signed so far, I can consolidate it all for the loan officer. Make it seamless. Margaret's eyes narrowed a fraction, a predator sensing a hint of movement in the grass. That seems overly complicated. Coraline, our family attorney, can handle the interfacing with the bank. I let a flicker of hurt cross my face. I just want to help, to make sure it's done right. My business is built on managing complex projects and budgets. I'm good at this. I turned to Ethan, deploying the language he loved. It's the partnership you talked about, right? I handle the financial architecture. You handle the family coordination. It was the perfect button to push. Ethan, eager to showcase his handling of me, nodded. Mom, it makes sense. Coraline's a pro at this stuff. Let her take the administrative burden off you. She'll get us the best rates. Margaret studied me for a long moment. I held her gaze, letting her see what she wanted to see. A dutiful, capable daughter-in-law stepping up to manage the mess they'd created. A useful tool. Very well, she conceded, her smile returning. I'll have the documents messengered to you tomorrow. It's so lovely to finally have everyone pulling in the same direction. The following day, a thick envelope arrived. It was a treasure trove of their audacity. Contracts with the Plaza, Bellefleur, Savoir Band, a luxury car service, the 5-star honeymoon package, all with my name and social security number neatly typed as the responsible party or financial guarantor. The sums were staggering, but more damning were the email chains Margaret had carelessly included. Printouts between her and the vendors. In one, to the wedding planner, she wrote, "Please ensure all correspondence is sent directly to me. My daughter-in-law, the signatory, is wonderfully creative but gets overwhelmed by details. I'm the point of contact for all financial matters." I scanned every page, my phone's document scanner humming quietly. Each scan was a piece of armor. I then compiled a neat, professional-looking digital folder, as promised, and sent it to Ethan. For the bank, I wrote, "Everything looks in order. Let me know when you want to set up the appointment for the home equity line." I was the picture of efficient support. His reply was swift. "You're amazing. Thank you for being on board. Appointment set for Thursday. I'll handle it. You've done enough." Of course he would. He wouldn't want me in the room where the actual loan was discussed. Fine. I had other appointments. Sophia's forensic accountant, a wiry, intense man named Leo who spoke in numbers and exhaled in sighs, set up a secure digital workspace. I gave him access to everything. The joint account statements, the wedding contracts, my personal and business accounts. His job was to follow the money. My job was to get the confession. That opportunity came a few nights later. Ethan was in a good mood. The loan process was moving. His mother was off his back. He'd had a productive late work session, which, according to a text I'd seen on the clone phone, meant drinks with Lauren at the Mercer Hotel bar. I waited until he'd poured a nightcap, a smug satisfaction wafting off him. I sat on the edge of the sofa, curling my legs under me, the picture of a contemplative wife. "Ethan," I began, my voice small, Can I just talk to you about the wedding? I'm trying to be strong, but sometimes it just hits me." He sat beside me, putting an arm around me. "Hey, it's okay. What's on your mind?" I had my phone face down on the cushion next to my thigh. A few subtle taps in my pocket had activated a voice recording app. Sophia had been clear. New York was a one-party consent state. It's just the amount. I let a tear escape, A masterful trick of thinking about my dog that died when I was 12. $2 million. It's our future. What about the expansion for my studio? What about the house upstate we talked about? What if I get pregnant? I laid it on thick, weaving his own supposed dreams into my fear. He pulled me closer, his voice a soothing rumble. Sure, this is temporary, a short-term sacrifice. The family will make it right. My parents' Nantucket place will sell, and that money comes right back to us. This is what we do for family. You'll see, in a year, this will all be a memory, and we'll be stronger for it. But putting it all in my name, I sniffled. It's so much risk, just for me. What if something goes wrong? Nothing will go wrong, he said, his tone firm, paternal. And it's not just for you. It's for us, the family. Look, Brandon's wedding. It's not just a party. It's a statement. It secures his future with the Canellis. It elevates the whole Evans name. That benefits us. 2. My partnership prospects. Our social standing. It's an investment in the family. I echoed softly. Exactly. Sometimes, in a family, the strongest one has to carry the load for a bit. And you, my love, you're the strongest one I know. He kissed the top of my head. That's why we did it this way. Your credit, your business standing, it's the bedrock. Without you, none of this happens. You're not just my wife, Coraline. You're the foundation. Every word was gold. The strongest one has to carry the load. That's why we did it this way. Without you, none of this happens. He was verbally tying himself, and by extension his family, to the deliberate decision to exploit my credit. It was a confession wrapped in a compliment. I let him hold me, my face buried in his chest, hiding the cold, clear triumph in my eyes. A few days later, I engineered the second piece of the puzzle. I bumped into Chloe, Brandon's sweet, slightly naive fiancée, at the high-end bridal salon where she was having her final fitting. I'd gotten the appointment time from the wedding planner's emails. Coraline, she squealed, swathed in tulle. What a surprise. Just picking up a dress for a client event. I lied, holding a garment bag. You look stunning. Chloe, absolutely radiant. We chatted about lace and veils. Then, I gently steered the conversation. You must be so excited and relieved. I know the planning has been intense. Margaret has such strong opinions. Chloe's smile faltered. Just for a second. Oh, Mrs. Evans has been incredibly helpful. She has such a clear vision. I'll bet, I said, my tone conspiratorial and warm. The plaza, the Savoir Band. I saw the proposals. Only the best. It must have been a whirlwind getting it all booked. Chloe leaned in, her voice dropping. Between you and me, it was a bit of a battle. I wanted a smaller, more intimate venue, maybe in the country. And Brandon and I loved this indie folk band from Brooklyn. But Mrs. Evans, she was very firm. She said for the Connolly-Evans Alliance, as she called it, only a certain tier would do. She said it was non-negotiable for the family's image. She shrugged, a little helplessly. I guess when someone else is writing the checks. I kept my smile fixed. She does have strong ideas about what's appropriate. I remember when Ethan and I got married. She had very specific thoughts on the champagne. Chloe nodded vigorously. Exactly, like the ice sculpture. I thought it was a little much, but she insisted. A statement piece, she said. And the 5-tier cake? I'm gluten intolerant. But she said a display cake was essential for the photos, and we could have a separate sheet cake for eating. She rolled her eyes, a gesture of mild rebellion. Sometimes I feel like I'm marrying the Plaza Hotel and an ice swan, not just Brandon. The ice swan. I stored that away. A perfect, ridiculous, expensive metaphor for Margaret's entire facade. Well, it's her gift to you both, I said, laying the trap with gentle sympathy. And she's taking care of all the financial headaches, which is a huge relief for you kids. Chloe's expression clouded with genuine confusion. Well, Yeah, but I thought you and Ethan were covering the big stuff. Brandon said your company was doing amazing and you were basically underwriting the whole thing as an investment in his future? She blushed, as if realizing how that sounded. Not that we're not grateful. It's just Brandon made it sound like it was your decision. A huge, generous gift. The pieces clicked into place with an almost audible snap. Margaret hadn't just orchestrated the fraud. She'd rewritten the narrative for the beneficiaries. We were the generous patrons, not the duped guarantors. It was a masterstroke. It made any future complaint from me look like petty backtracking. I forced a laugh, light and airy. Oh, families, the stories that get told. Let's just say we're all thrilled to contribute to your special day. I changed the subject, and soon after, made my escape. In the back of a cab, I replayed Chloe's words. She said for the Connolly-Evans Alliance, Brandon said your decision. A huge, generous gift. It was all there. The coercion, the deception at every level. I had the financial paper trail from Leo, who was already uncovering a network of transfers from our joint account to Harold's failing investment vehicles. I had the damning emails between Ethan and Margaret. I had Ethan's recorded confession. And now, I had the human testimony of the blushing bride, completely unaware that her fairy tale was funded by a forgery. That night, I met Sophia at a quiet, members-only bar in the financial district. I handed her a flash drive with the recording and relayed the conversation with Chloe. Sophia sipped her martini, a grim smile on her face. The ice sculpture testimony is the cherry on top. A judge or jury eats that stuff up. It shows wanton extravagance and coercion of a third party. She leaned forward. Leo's preliminary report is damning. Over $400,000 of what he can definitively trace as your business income, funneled through the joint account to Evan's family expenses over the past 2 years. None of it authorized by you. All of it after the fact. That's dissipation of marital assets. Fraud. The prenup is toast. So what's the next move? I asked, the adrenaline of the hunt a steady hum in my veins. We file the divorce petition. We file a separate civil suit for fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress against Ethan, Margaret, and Harold. We subpoena every vendor, every bank record. We bury them in paper and depositions. But she paused. We don't serve them yet. Why wait? Because the wedding is in 3 weeks. Sophia said, her eyes glinting. A wedding where you, the wronged and publicly humiliated wife, are expected to smile and toast the happy couple. A wedding where every single vendor is legally entangled with you. A wedding that is the centerpiece of their fraud. She swirled her glass. Let them have their perfect day. Let them get to the very edge of the altar, believing they've gotten away with it. Then, the Monday after the wedding, we hit them with everything. The petition, the lawsuits, the injunctions to freeze assets. We let the contrast between the fantasy and the reality be its own kind of exquisite hell. The plan was brutal, brutally complete. It required one more performance from me, the performance of a lifetime. I went home. Ethan was asleep. His phone, my old phone. The clone, buzzing on his nightstand with a goodnight text from Lauren. I didn't check it. I didn't need to. I stood in the dark bedroom, looking at the outline of the man I had vowed to love. The mask I wore felt less like a disguise and more like my true face, now a face of calm, calculated resolve. The heartbreak was a distant memory, a fossil buried under layers of evidence and strategy. He'd called me the foundation. He was right. I was the foundation, and I was about to trigger the controlled demolition that would bring his entire gilded world crashing down. The wedding would be their grand finale, and it would be the prologue to my liberation. The 3 weeks leading to the wedding were a masterclass in psychological warfare, fought behind a mask of serene compliance. I was the perfect future sister-in-law. I attended the chaotic bridal shower at the Pierre, nodding as Margaret held court, dictating taste, I offered meek, overruled suggestions to Chloe about centerpieces. I even went dress shopping with Margaret for her mother of the groom outfit, enduring her commentary on my interesting style choices with a placid smile. Every interaction was fuel for the fire, meticulously logged in my mind. Meanwhile, in the shadows, my machinery operated with silent, lethal precision. Under Sophia's guidance, I executed the first, most critical move, the financial exfiltration. It began with a business emergency. I staged a frantic call in front of Ethan, speaking in rushed, urgent tones to a fictional Japanese client about a critical, time-sensitive acquisition of a historic Kyoto property that required my design firm's immediate liquidity. I have to move fast, Ethan, I said, biting my lip in a perfect pantomime of stressed excitement. This commission is 7 figures, but they need a show of liquidity from my business account to be considered for the project bond. It's a formality, but everything has to be in place by Friday. Ethan, ever the opportunistic strategist, saw a bigger future payoff. 7 figures? That's incredible. Cora, of course. Do what you need to do. Will it affect the home equity line? It shouldn't. I lied smoothly. It's a temporary move. I'll park the funds in a separate project account. The bank for the loan is looking at our personal assets and income, not my business's day-to-day liquidity. I leaned in, touching his arm. Think of it. This one project could cover Brandon's entire wedding and then some. That was all he needed to hear. Greed, as always, overrode caution. With his tacit, distracted approval, I acted. Over 48 hours, working with a discreet financial advisor Sophia trusted, I dismantled my financial presence in the partnership. I liquidated non-essential assets in my solo investment account at a process already quietly initiated weeks prior. I invoked clauses in my business's operating agreement, clauses my own premarital lawyer had insisted on. Much to Ethan's past annoyance, to illegally separate the firm's cash reserves from personal marital property, citing the project bond requirement. The money flowed out of shared spaces and into new, fortress-like accounts under my maiden name, Coraline Shaw, at institutions the Evans family had never heard of. Simultaneously, Leo, the forensic accountant, completed his work. The final report was a thing of devastating beauty. A color-coded spreadsheet tracing $487.000 of my direct earnings, filtered through our joint account to Evans family loans, Harold's bad investments, the down payment on Brandon's overpriced Audi, and, most recently, the wedding vendor deposits. It was a map of my own financial cannibalization. The Friday before the wedding, the storm began its quiet approach. I had the documents delivered. I chose a Thursday evening. Ethan was in a buoyant mood. The home equity line of credit had been approved. The final paperwork set to be signed after the wedding, a formality he saw as a victory. He'd just gotten off the phone with Margaret, finalizing seating charts. He poured 2 glasses of expensive scotch, handing one to me. To getting through it, he said, clinking his glass against mine. 1 more week, and this whole pressure cooker is behind us. Then we can focus on us again. Maybe even that trip to Bali you wanted. The gall of it, the sheer, breathtaking hypocrisy, almost made me laugh. Instead, I took a sip, the peat, smoke tasting like ashes. Actually, before we toast, I said, my voice calm, we need to discuss something. About the wedding financing. A flicker of irritation crossed his face, quickly smoothed. Coraline, not tonight. It's handled. The loan is approved. My parents are good for their half. Let's just enjoy the calm before the chaos. It's not handled, I said, setting my glass down with a precise click. I walked to my briefcase, pulled out a single, slim folder, and placed it on the coffee table between us. In fact, I'm afraid there's been a change of plans. He stared at the folder as if it were a live snake. What is that? Open it. Warily, he did. The first page was not a loan application or a vendor invoice. It was a formal, legally worded document from Sophia's firm. The letterhead was stark, authoritative. The title, Notice of Fraud and Demand for Restitution Injunction. His eyes scanned the first paragraph, his face draining of color. What the hell is this? He whispered. The words choked. It's a summary, I said, my tone conversational, as if discussing the weather. It outlines how, over the past 24 months, funds originating from my separate property .my business income were systematically diverted, without my knowledge or consent, to subsidize your family's lifestyle and, specifically, to fund Brandon's wedding. It details the fraudulently obtained contracts in my name. It includes a preliminary forensic accounting report. I gestured to the folder. Page 6 has a particularly interesting breakdown of the transfers to your father's hedge fund. Page 9 covers the Audi. He was flipping pages now, faster, his breath coming in short gasps. This is insane. This is our money, our joint account. You agreed. I never agreed to have my name forged on $2 million in vendor contracts. Ethan, I interrupted, my voice like steel. I never agreed to fund your brother's 5-tier cake or your father's failed investments. The joint account was fed primarily by my earnings, which you and your mother treated as a slush fund. That's called dissipation of marital assets. And fraud. He stood up, the document scattering at his feet. Where did you get this? Who is behind this? Is this that viper friend of yours? Sophia, she's poisoning you against your own family. My family didn't commit felony fraud against me. I replied coolly. You did. Your mother did. The documents are all there. The email chains where you plotted to use my credit because yours wasn't good enough. The one where your mother called me the strongest financial pillar. I found that one particularly touching. The color that returned to his face was a deep, furious red. You went through my emails. You spied on me. I defended myself from a conspiracy, I said, standing to face him. And that's just the financial part. I haven't even gotten to the infidelity yet. Lauren sent her love. By the way, she's very understanding of your complicated situation. Though she seemed to think I was a gold digger, I found that ironic. The name, Lauren, hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back a step, all the bluster evaporating, replaced by a primal, terrified rage. You bitch, he breathed, the words venomous. You scheming, conniving little bitch. You've been planning this. I've been documenting your plan. Ethan, yours and your mother's. I'm just the one who decided not to play my assigned role as the willing ATM anymore. I picked up my briefcase. The demand is simple. You and your parents will immediately assume all liabilities associated with the wedding contracts. You will begin restitution for the diverted funds. As outlined, you will do this before the wedding, or I will file this document, along with the lawsuit for fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress, and a petition for divorce citing adultery and constructive abandonment on Monday morning. The choice is yours. You can't do this. He roared, advancing on me. You'll destroy my family. You'll ruin Brandon's wedding. After everything we've done for you, what you've done for me. I laughed, a short, sharp sound with no humor. You've used me. You've lied to me. You've stolen from me. And you've betrayed me with a woman you discuss me with like I'm a hostile corporate takeover. No, Ethan, I'm not destroying your family. You did that the moment you decided I was a resource to be exploited, not a partner to be loved. He stared at me, his mind racing, the lawyer in him scrambling for a defense, a threat, a leverage point. You have no proof of any affair. It's your word against mine. And the money? It's marital property. You'll get half, at best, and it'll be tied up in courts for years. You'll be bankrupt from legal fees before you see a dime. I smiled then, a cold, thin smile that felt foreign on my face. Check your personal email. I just sent you a little care package. Voice recordings, email printouts, hotel receipts, photographs. I have proof of everything. Ethan. And as for money, I gestured around the apartment. I've already moved what's mine. My business accounts are separate and shielded. The retainer for my lawyer did a very aggressive one. IS already paid. I won't be bankrupt. But you? With a fraud lawsuit, an injunction freezing your assets, pending divorce, and the wedding bills about to come due to a signatory who is now suing you? I'd be more worried about yourself. The true magnitude of his predicament began to dawn on him. The fury gave way to a panicked calculation. Coraline, wait. Let's talk about this. We can fix this. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. I have never thought more clearly in my life, I said, cutting him off. I walked to the hallway, where a single suitcase and a garment bag waited. Packed days ago and hidden. I'm staying at the Greenwich Hotel. My lawyer's contact information is in the folder. Have your lawyer. And I suggest you get a very good one. Contact her. You have until 5 p.m. Sunday, the day before the wedding, to provide signed agreements assuming the debt and a certified check for the first installment of restitution. If not, the fireworks start Monday morning. I picked up my suitcase. He just stood there, in the middle of our beautifully appointed living room, looking like a man who had just watched his entire life's blueprint set on fire. You'll never get away with this. He spat, but the threat was hollow, desperate. I already have, I said, and walked out the door. The silence in the luxurious hotel suite was deafening. It wasn't peaceful. It was the silence of a vacuum, of suspended animation. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, and waited. My phone, the real one, began to blow up an hour later. First, Ethan, a torrent of furious, pleading, threatening texts and voicemails. Then, as he clearly ran to his mother, the unknown number started. Greenwich area code. Margaret. I let it all go to voicemail. I listened to the first one from her. Her voice, usually so controlled, was sharp with a barely contained hysteria. Coraline, this is Margaret. Ethan has told me about this ridiculous document. I don't know what nonsense that friend of yours has put in your head, but we need to talk. As a family, call me immediately. This is not how adults handle disagreements. I deleted it. The next one was more direct. Coraline, I insist you call me. You are making a catastrophic error. You will not win a war against this family. Think of the scandal. Think of your reputation. Call me. I didn't. I had Sophia send a single, formal email to Ethan, carbon copied to Margaret and Harold's known email addresses, reiterating the terms and the deadline. All future communication must go through my attorney. Saturday passed in a strange, quiet limbo. Sophia called. They've retained counsel, a bulldog from an old-school firm. He's blustering, threatening defamation. Standard playbook. They're trying to scare us into backing down. Are we scared? I asked, my voice steady. Sophia's laugh was a sharp, happy sound. Honey, we have a spreadsheet. They have a 5-tier cake and a melting ice swan. I'm not scared. I'm entertained. Sunday, the day before the wedding, arrived. The deadline was 5 p.m. At 4:50, 5 p.m., my email dinged. It was from Ethan's new lawyer. The tone was haughty, dismissive. They denied all allegations of fraud and wrongdoing. They characterized my actions as a regrettable, hysterical overreaction and threatened to sue me for defamation and tortious interference if I proceeded. They offered, magnanimously, to consider a post-nuptial agreement clarifying the wedding debt as a family loan to be repaid by Brandon and Chloe, pending my immediate retraction of all baseless accusations and a return to the marital home. It was a non-starter, a complete denial. They were calling my bluff. I looked at the email, then out at the twilight settling over the city. I felt a strange calm. They had chosen the hard way. So be it. I forwarded the email to Sophia with a single note. Proceed. Then, I got ready. I had a wedding to attend. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom on Saturday night was a cathedral of illusion. Thousands of gardenias and white roses dripped from crystal chandeliers. The Savoir band played a smooth, inoffensive jazz standard. The air itself seemed gilded, thick with the scent of money and desperate expectation. I stood at the entrance, allowing the scene to imprint itself on my memory. This was the altar upon which they were sacrificing my financial future. It was beautiful, and I was here to conduct the funeral. I had dressed with meticulous care, not in the muted, supportive tones I'd worn for months. I wore a column of liquid gunmetal gray, a designer gown I'd bought for myself after landing the Kyoto commission, which was, in fact, very real and now securely funded. The dress was severe, elegant, and it screamed of an independence they could no longer touch. My only jewelry was a pair of simple diamond studs, a gift from my mother, a touchstone of a self that existed before Evans. I looked like I belonged, not as an accessory, but as a sovereign power. I felt every head turn as I glided in, a murmur rippling through the pre-ceremony cocktail crowd. The Evans verse was in attendance. Starch-colored lawyers, hedge fund ghosts, Greenwich matrons with frozen smiles. They all knew about the generous sister-in-law bankrolling the spectacle. Now, they saw her, and the energy wasn't gratitude. It was a prurient, buzzing curiosity. The rumors, thanks to Ethan and Margaret's frantic, quiet damage control over the past week, had already begun to seep out. Marital troubles, cold feet, over money. Of all things, I accepted a flute of champagne from a passing waiter, my smile serene. My first target wasn't hard to find. Margaret was holding court near the absurd ice swan sculpture, its beak glistening under the lights. She was a vision in pale lavender silk, but her neck was corded with tension, her smile so tight it looked painful. Her eyes locked onto me from across the room, and for a fleeting second, I saw raw, unfiltered panic before the matriarchal mask slammed back down. I made my way over, a study in calm. Margaret, you look beautiful. The room is exquisite. You've outdone yourself. Every word was polite, and every word was a dagger twisting in the wound of her knowledge. Coraline, she said, her voice a strained whisper meant only for me. The people around us pretended not to listen, their conversations becoming suddenly too animated. What are you doing? Attending my brother-in-law's wedding, I said, my tone one of mild confusion. Was my RSVP not clear? Don't you dare. She hissed, the smile still plastered on for the benefit of Mrs. Connolly, who was hovering nearby. Don't you dare make a scene. A scene? I echoed, just loud enough for the immediate circle to hear. I let my gaze sweep the opulent room. Why would I make a scene? I helped create this. I'm so proud to be part of it. I reached out and adjusted her corsage, a gesture that looked affectionate but made her flinch. Relax, Margaret. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. I moved away before she could respond, leaving her standing there, trembling with impotent rage. I felt her eyes boring into my back. I found Harold by the bar, already on his third scotch, his face ashen. Harold, I nodded. Coraline, he mumbled, unable to meet my gaze. It's quite a thing. It is. I agreed. I hope it was worth the investment. He finally looked at me, his eyes bloodshot and pleading. Can't we? Isn't there another way? You had your way. Harold, I said softly. Now, I have mine. I left him staring into his glass. Then, I saw him. Ethan was near the groom's makeshift altar space, talking to a groomsman. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, but there was a hollowness around his eyes, a feverish sheen of sweat on his brow. He felt my presence and turned. The force of his glare was almost physical, a mixture of hatred, terror, and a dawning horrified understanding. He excused himself and stalked towards me, grabbing my elbow with a force that was meant to hurt, steering me towards a secluded alcove behind a towering floral arrangement. "What the fuck are you playing at?" he snarled, his breath hot and sharp with gin. "You look like you're here for a press conference, not a wedding." I gently but firmly extracted my arm from his grip. "I'm here to support Brandon. Ethan, like you wanted, like a pillar of the family." I smoothed the sleeve of my gown. "You should be happy. I'm playing my part. Your part is to sit down. Shut up, drink your champagne, and look fucking grateful to be here." He spat, keeping his voice low, a furious whisper. "My lawyer is going to destroy you on Monday. You have nothing. I have a signed contract for a Kyoto Ryokan renovation that will net me more than your annual salary." I said pleasantly, "I have all my money, and I have, in my purse, a USB drive with every email, every transfer, and a particularly salacious recording of you explaining why my credit had to be the bedrock. I'd say I have quite a lot." The panic in his eyes deepened. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't. The scandal. Doubt will bury you." I finished for him. "Not me. I'm the victim who was brave enough to fight back. The narrative is already written. Ethan, you're the greedy lawyer who pimped out his wife's credit to fund his family's facade. And your mother is the Machiavellian matriarch who orchestrated it. People love that story. They'll hate you for it." He leaned in, his face inches from mine. "If you ruin this day for my brother, I swear to God, Coraline, I will make the rest of your life a living hell. You'll never work in this city again." I didn't flinch. I met his gaze, my own utterly cold. "You're in no position to make threats. You're about to be unemployed, sued for fraud, and divorcing a woman who knows where all the bodies are buried. The only hell being engineered here is yours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I believe the mothers are about to be seated." I walked away, leaving him standing there, alone and unraveling. I took my assigned seat in the front row, on Evan's side, a place of honor that now felt like a defendant's dock. The ceremony was a blur of pomp and empty promise. Brandon looked dopily happy. Chloe was radiant, though her eyes flicked to me once with a flicker of that same confusion. They said their vows, promising to share everything. I almost laughed. Then, the reception, the tense, lavish dinner, the toasts began. Harold gave a rambling, slightly drunken speech about new beginnings. Mr. Connolly spoke of legacy and union. Then, Brandon bounded to the microphone, cheeks flushed with joy and champagne. Wow. He began, his voice choked with fake emotion. "This night, this amazing, perfect night, none of this would be possible without the incredible support of my family." He looked at our table. "Mom, Dad, thank you for your vision." The word was Margaret's, and he said it with a grin. "And Ethan, my big bro, always looking out for me." He raised his glass to Ethan, who managed a ghastly imitation of a smile. And to Coraline, Brandon continued, his voice swelling with sincerity. "My amazing sister, you didn't just support this wedding. You made it possible. You believed in us, in our love. This is your gift to us, and we will never, ever forget it." The room erupted in applause. Guests turned to smile at me, the generous benefactress. Margaret's face was a rigid mask. Ethan stared at his plate, his jaw working. Chloe was beaming at me, her earlier doubt seemingly assuaged by the public tribute. This was the moment, the narrative they had crafted for public consumption, delivered from the lips of the blissfully ignorant groom. It was the perfect setup. As the applause died down, the bandleader gestured. "And now, a few words from the sister of the groom, Coraline Evans." I hadn't been on the official schedule. Margaret had seen to that. But Sophia, through a discreetly greased palm to the wedding planner, had ensured I was added last minute. The murmur of surprise was audible. Margaret's head whipped towards me, her eyes wide with terror. Ethan looked up, pure dread on his face. I stood, smoothing my gown. I walked to the microphone with a calm that felt superhuman. I looked out at the sea of expectant, slightly tipsy faces, at the Canellis' polite curiosity, at Brandon's proud grin, at Chloe's happy tears, at Margaret's paralysis, at Ethan's agony. I tapped the mic gently. Thank you, Brandon, for those incredibly kind words. I let my gaze sweep the room, making eye contact with a few key gossips. When Ethan and I got married, someone gave me a piece of advice. They said, in a family, you have to be able to trust that everyone is working for the same happy ending. I paused, letting the sentimental platitude hang. I've thought about that a lot lately, about trust, about what it means to be a pillar of support. I glanced at Ethan, a gentle, wifely look that made him go pale. It means sometimes you have to be strong enough to carry the weight of others' dreams, even when that weight is unexpectedly heavy. A few knowing titters from those who'd heard whispers about the cost. Margaret gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. Brandon and Chloe. I continued, turning to them, my voice warm. Your love story is just beginning. It's beautiful, and it's yours. Never let anyone else write the chapters for you. Never let anyone else put their name on your dreams, or tell you what they should cost. The double meaning landed with a thud in the sudden quiet. Chloe's smile faltered. Brandon just looked confused. This day is perfect. It is a testament to a very specific vision. I nodded graciously to Margaret, who looked like she might vomit. I am so happy I could contribute to the foundation of it all. I lifted my glass. My hand was steady. So, my toast to Brandon and Chloe. May your marriage be built on absolute transparency. May you always see each other clearly, and may you have the courage to tear down every beautiful, gilded wall that anyone else ever builds around you. To the happy couple, the silence that followed was profound, broken only by the clinking of the ice swan slowly dripping in its silver basin. It was a toast that sounded like a blessing but felt like a curse. The guests, uncertain, began a ragged, delayed applause. Some looked bewildered. Some, the sharper ones, looked utterly fascinated, glancing between my stoic face and the Evans family's collective stricken horror. I didn't return to my table. I walked past it, towards the ballroom's grand exit. As I passed Ethan, I leaned down, my lips close to his ear. My voice was a whisper only he could hear, sweet and venomous. The foundation just cracked. Ethan, the demolition starts Monday. I didn't look back. I walked out of the ballroom, through the opulent lobby, and into the clean, cold Manhattan night. Behind me, the party continued, but its heart had stopped. The illusion was shattered. I could almost hear the first delicate strains of the collapse beginning, that the whispered questions, the frantic explanations, the dawning realization on Chloe's face. I slid into the waiting town car Sophia had arranged. My phone buzzed once, a text from an unknown number. Margaret. No doubt. I didn't read it. I opened my email. Opened the draft Sophia, and I had prepared days ago. The subject line. Filed. Evans versus Evans. Complaint for divorce-related actions. I took a deep, shuddering breath that was not a sob, but the expulsion of 3 years of poisoned air. Then, I hit schedule send. For Monday, 9:01 a.m., the car pulled away from the curb, leaving the glowing facade of the plaza behind. The performance was over. The war was on, and for the first time, I was on the offensive. The Monday after the plaza wedding dawned clear and cold. A sterile, efficient light that matched the new reality. In my suite at the Greenwich Hotel, there was no hangover, only the crystalline clarity of execution. At 9:01 a.m., as the first waves of nausea and regret were likely hitting the Evans family, the digital tsunami hit. Sophia's firm, on my behalf, electronically filed a cascade of documents with the New York County Supreme Court. The primary filing was the verified complaint for divorce. citing adultery, constructive abandonment, and cruel and inhuman treatment. Attached as exhibits were the forensic accounting summary and redacted prints of the most damning emails. Simultaneously, they filed a separate civil lawsuit against Ethan, Margaret, and Harold Evans for fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. A third filing requested a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction freezing certain marital assets and barring Ethan from accessing or leveraging any of my business accounts or credit lines. The petitions were served via email to their lawyers and by process server to Ethan's office and the Greenwich house before 10 a.m. The controlled demolition had begun. My phone, set to only allow calls from Sophia and my new security detail, remained silent. I spent the morning on the balcony, drinking coffee and reviewing the finalized plans for the Kyoto project. The sense of calm was profound, almost unnerving. I was no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop. I had thrown the entire rack at their heads. Sophia called at noon, her voice crackling with adrenaline. It's done. Served. Their lawyer, the bulldog, just called. He's sputtering. He went from threats to my clients are willing to discuss a reasonable settlement in under 3 minutes. What's the play? I asked. We don't discuss. Not yet. Let them marinate. Let the panic set in. Our first move is the family. Did you send the package? Going out now, I said, opening my laptop. I had compiled a different, more targeted dossier. It contained the wedding financial scheme emails, a summary of the diverted funds, and, crucially, the evidence of Ethan's affair at the hotel receipt from the Mercer, a screenshot of a text thread from the clone phone that was ambiguous but damning, and the AOL email where Margaret referenced Lauren as an agreeable distraction. It was carefully curated, enough to prove systemic deceit and humiliation, but not the full nuclear arsenal. I attached a brief, handwritten note, scanned and sent as a PDF, to the Evans family. You believed my resources were yours to command, and my silence was yours to purchase. You were mistaken. The attached is a preview of what the world will see. The lawsuits are filed. The choice is now yours. A brutal, public unraveling, or a quiet, but total, surrender. See, I sent it to every email address I had for Ethan's extended family. His stern, retired judge Uncle Robert, his gossipy Aunt Cynthia in Palm Beach, his cousins in finance and media. I sent it to Brandon's new personal email, the one I'd fished from the wedding planner's list. I did not send it to Chloe. The detonation within the family was swift and played out via a cascade of forwarded emails and frantic phone calls I could only imagine. My proof came in the form of a call to Sophia's office, which she patched through to me. Coraline, it's Robert Evans. The judge's voice was like gravel, heavy with disapproval, but it wasn't aimed at me. Uncle Robert, I've seen the materials. I've spoken with my brother. Along. Painsai. Harold confirmed the broad strokes, the financial mismanagement, Margaret's role. I am appalled. This is not how this family conducts itself. Or, it was not. I said nothing, letting the weight of his statement hang. Ethan's extracurricular activities are a personal disgrace. The use of your name, your credit, is potentially criminal. I've advised Harold that his only course is full. Immediate cooperation with your demands. Margaret, he paused, and I heard a lifetime of strained sibling dynamics in that pause. Margaret will be difficult, but she is isolated. The family will not rally behind this. Not when the evidence is so graphic. Thank you for letting me know. Robert, this will be contained. Coraline, the lawsuits, can they be contained as well? A private settlement? That depends entirely on Ethan and Margaret's willingness to accept reality. I said, my terms are non-negotiable. They assume all wedding debt, full restitution for the diverted funds, an uncontested divorce on my terms. I will make the situation clear to them, he said, his tone final. The family patriarch had spoken. Margaret's power base, her reputation within the clan, had just been obliterated by her own brother-in-law. The next explosion was more public and sweeter. It hit page 6 of the New York Post that afternoon. A blind item sourced from a wedding guest who was likely one of Sophia's law school friends. Plaza perfect. Wedding has meltdown Monday. Seems the champagne bubbles weren't the only thing fizzling out after a certain over-the-top 7-figure wedding at the Plaza this weekend. We're told the lavish bash, funded by a mysterious angel investor from within the groom's family, has led to a massive family feud and legal blow-up of Epstein-level proportions. The angel, it seems, has clipped her wings and filed for divorce, along with a fraud lawsuit against her soon-to-be ex and his entire family. Word is, the ice sculpture wasn't the only thing melting under the heat. The mother of the groom, a Greenwich fixture known for her assertive taste, is said to be inconsolable. Guess the price of perfection just went up. I allowed myself a small, tight smile. The narrative was spreading. The mysterious angel was a perfect touch. It made me sound benevolent and wronged. And Margaret, like a social climbing dragon. The fallout arrived in person that evening. I was expecting Ethan, or maybe a lawyer. I was not expecting Brandon, still looking rumpled and shell-shocked, standing in the hushed lobby of the Greenwich Hotel, begging the concierge to call my room. I had him send up. This, I wanted to witness firsthand. He burst into the suite, his face a mask of confused betrayal. "What did you do?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "My wedding. My marriage. Chloe won't talk to me. She's at her parents' house. She says we're frauds and she feels dirty." I closed the door calmly. "Sit down. Brandon, I don't want to sit down. I want you to tell me why you're trying to destroy my life. After everything we did for you, the entitlement, even now, was breathtaking." "What you did for?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Welcomed you into the family, treated you like a sister, and you repay us by suing us? By sending those horrible emails to the whole family?" Aunt Cynthia called my mom crying. The emails were facts. "Brandon, the lawsuit is a consequence." "Consequence of what?" "Of throwing me the wedding of my dreams," he shouted, throwing his hands up. I walked to the desk, picked up a printed copy of the Plaza contract, and held it out to him. "Look at the signatory line." He glanced at it, impatient. "So, it's your name. You said you'd help." "I never said that. Your mother forged my name on this. Brandon. She and Ethan. They committed fraud. They stole my credit to pay for your dream because they couldn't afford it and didn't want to look cheap in front of the Canellis. You were a prop in your mother's social climbing, and I was the bank they robbed to buy the set." He stared at the paper, his brain slowly, painfully, connecting dots that had been deliberately hidden from him. "No, Mom said she said you and Ethan were gifting it, an investment in our future. She said you wanted to. She lied. To you, to Chloe, to everyone. Check the emails I sent. The proof is there. Your dream wedding was built on a crime. My crime. In the eyes of the law, I could see the foundation of his blithe worldview crumbling. Ask yourself, Brandon, did Chloe really want a 5-tier cake she can't eat? An ice swan? Or did your mother insist?" His bravado deflated, replaced by a dawning, sick horror. "Chloe, she didn't. She fought with Mom about the cake, about the band." He sank into a chair, his hands going to his hair. "Oh, God, the money. The lawyers said it's $2 million. They said you were liable. But if I didn't sign, then the contracts are fraudulent, and the vendors will come after the person who actually signed them, your mother. And when they realize she has no assets because they're frozen or tied up in lawsuits, they'll come after you and Chloe as the beneficiaries. Your dream is a debt that will follow you for decades." The color drained completely from his face. "We can't. I'm an associate. Chloe's a teacher. We can't pay that." "I know," I said, not unkindly. The kindness was gone. That was the point of using my name. I could pay. I was the heat shield. And your mother and brother never thought I'd mind being burned. He looked up at me, a lost boy in a man's suit. What do I do? You need a lawyer. Brandon. Not the family lawyer. Your own. And you need to talk to Chloe. Tell her the truth. The whole truth. It's the only thing that might save your actual marriage. Which, for what it's worth, is the only part of this weekend that was ever real. He left 20 minutes later, a broken version of the golden boy who'd boasted about the wedding's price tag. The fallout was spreading, precisely as planned. The final call of the night came from Ethan. This time, the fury was gone, stripped away by legal reality. His voice was hollow, defeated. They're dropping me, he said without preamble. Who? The firm. The managing partner called. The post item. The lawsuits, it's a reputational risk. They're putting me on administrative leave, pending review. Which means I'm finished. No partnership. No job. My lawyer says your injunction will be granted. My assets are frozen. My mother is screaming at my father. Brandon isn't speaking to her. The family thinks they think she's a monster. I listened, saying nothing. You win. Okay. The words were a bitter scrape. You destroyed everything. What do you want? I wanted you to stop. I said simply, I wanted you to see me as a person, not a portfolio. You couldn't. So now, I want what the law says I'm owed. And I want you to feel, for 1 second, the powerlessness you made me feel. I'll fight you, he said, but it was a reflex. Empty. You'll lose, and it will cost you the last of your money and the last of your dignity. Or you can sign, accept responsibility for the debt, agree to my divorce terms. It's the only way you avoid bankruptcy and total disgrace. And Lauren? He asked, a pathetic flash of concern for his distraction. She's your problem. Though, a word of advice, she thinks you're rich. You're about to be very, very poor. See how agreeable she finds that. I hung up. The opening salvo was over. The enemy's lines were in disarray. Their command structure collapsed. Their morale shattered. The next phase was negotiation. Surrender terms. But the victory, the visceral, transformative victory, had already been won in the silent horror of a Greenwich mansion, in the shattered faith of a new bride, and in the hollow voice of a man who finally understood the cost of his greed. I ordered room service. I was starving. The fight ahead would be legal, tedious, a war of paperwork, but the soul of the battle, the part that mattered, was done. I had taken their perfect, gilded fantasy and shown the world the rot at its core. Now, it was time to pick through the rubble and rebuild something that was entirely, irrevocably mine. The mediation was held in a sterile, wood-paneled conference room in a midtown office tower, a neutral ground that smelled of lemony polish and suppressed rage. Sophia sat to my right, a panther in a navy suit. Across the wide mahogany table was Ethan, flanked by his bulldog lawyer, a man named Reynolds, whose bluster had visibly deflated over the past weeks. Harold Evans sat stiffly beside him, looking 10 years older. Margaret, on Reynolds's other side, was a monument to icy fury. She refused to look at me, her gaze fixed on a hideous abstract painting on the far wall. Brandon was not present. His own lawyer was negotiating a separate, desperate settlement with the wedding vendors, a process funded by a loan from a suddenly chastened Uncle Robert that would take Brandon and Chloe a decade to repay. The mediator, a tired-looking, retired judge, steepled his fingers. We're here to see if we can resolve the matters of Evans versus Evans and the related civil actions without the need for a protracted, public, and expensive trial. Mrs. Evans.MS. Shaw has presented a proposed settlement. Mr. Reynolds, you've had time to review. Reynolds cleared his throat. My client finds the terms draconian. The division of assets is wholly one-sided. The demand for Mr. Evans to assume all wedding-related debt, despite Ms. Shaw's name being on the contracts, is unconscionable, and the financial restitution she demands is based on a creative interpretation of marital finances. Sophia didn't even look up from her notepad. Your client forged her signature to commit fraud, diverted nearly $500,000 of her separate property, and committed adultery. Draconian would be us pressing for criminal charges, which we are still fully prepared to do, and which the district attorney's office has indicated they would review with interest given the evidence of systematic forgery. Her voice was cool, conversational. The terms are not a starting point for negotiation. They are the finish line. The only question is whether your client crosses it voluntarily, or we drag him through it in open court. Page 6 already has the tip line on speed dial. Ethan flinched. The threat of more publicity, of the sordid details of the AOL emails and the hotel receipts becoming public record, was the knife at his throat. His professional reputation was in tatters. A public trial would be the cremation. The prenuptial agreement, Reynolds began, that is voidable due to fraud, duress, and your client's failure to disclose the full extent of his family's financial dependencies and his ongoing extramarital relationship at the time of signing. Sophia finished for him. We will prevail on that motion. Spending your client's remaining retainer to fight it is inadvisable. Harold leaned over and whispered fiercely to Ethan, who shook his head, his face pale. Margaret continued to stare at the wall, but a muscle in her jaw pulsed wildly. The Nantucket house, Harold said suddenly, his voice rough. The sale it's pending. The proceeds, after the mortgage, could cover a portion of the wedding debt. If the restitution figure were adjusted. Sophia looked at me. I gave a single, slight shake of my head. I had moved beyond bargaining with them. The Nantucket proceeds are a marital asset of yours, Mr. Evans. Sophia said, how you choose to liquidate them to satisfy your son's personal liability is your concern. It does not alter the settlement with Ms. Shaw. This is extortion. Margaret finally snapped, her head whipping around, her eyes blazing at me. You are holding this family hostage. After everything we shared, the family dinners, the holidays, we treated you like a daughter. The room went silent. Even the mediator looked uncomfortable. I slowly turned my gaze to meet hers. I didn't speak for a long moment, letting her words hang in the air, pathetic and hollow. You treated me like a line of credit. Margaret, I said, my voice quiet but clear, cutting through the stuffy air. You discussed me as a financial instrument. You called my credit formidable. You called my independence a problem to be solved. You planned the theft of my financial identity over prime rib and Pinot Noir. Daughters aren't forgeries. You don't have to forge a daughter's signature. She recoiled as if slapped. It was for the family. No, I corrected. My tone final. It was for you, for your social standing, for the Connolly-Evans alliance. You used Brandon's wedding, Ethan's marriage, and my money to build a monument to yourself. And now you get to live in its shadow. I turned back to the mediator. We're done here. My terms are final. They have until 5 p.m. today to sign. After that, we proceed to discovery. I look forward to deposing every vendor, every financial planner, and of course, Ms. Lauren Mitchell. I stood, gathering my things. Sophia followed suit. Wait, Ethan's voice was a croak. He looked at his father, at his mother's stony, defeated profile, then back at me. All the arrogance, the handsome confidence, was gone. He was just a man who had gambled everything on someone else's kindness and lost. I'll sign. Ethan, Margaret hissed. Do you have any idea what a trial will be like? Mother? He shot back, a sudden, desperate anger in his voice. They have it all. The emails, the receipts. They'll put Lauren on the stand. They'll put you on the stand. Do you want to explain to a jury why you thought forging her name was for family? I'm finished. My career is over. I can't. I can't do the trial. The last sentence was a whisper of utter defeat. I had won, not in the courtroom, but here, in this room, by revealing the true cost of their victory. The cost was him. Reynolds sighed, a sound of professional capitulation. We'll need to review the language. Your office has the documents. Sophia said, E-signature is fine. The clock starts now. She placed a business card on the table. For the signing portal. We walked out. In the elevator, Sophia let out a long, slow breath. They'll sign. He's broken. She's lost the family. Harold just wants it to stop. You did it. I didn't feel elation. I felt a profound, bone-deep exhaustion. And beneath it, a solid, unshakable floor of peace. Yeah, they signed at 4:58 p.m. The agreement was comprehensive and brutal. Ethan received nothing of my premarital assets or the post-separation growth of my business. He assumed sole legal and financial responsibility for all wedding debts, indemnifying me in perpetuity. He agreed to a lump sum settlement that represented a fraction of the marital assets, but was, in reality, a repayment of the diverted funds. The divorce would be uncontested, with a waiver of all spousal support. The civil suits would be dropped, with prejudice. In return, I agreed to a strict non-disparagement clause that bound us both to a gag order that protected his tattered reputation as much as it protected my privacy. It was a draw, on paper. In reality, it was a total surrender. A week later, the final divorce decree arrived at my new apartment, a sun-drenched loft in Tribeca I'd bought with the Kyoto Project Advance. It was a single piece of paper that erased 3 years of my life and all of its lies. I framed it and hung it in my walk-in closet, a private trophy. The final loose end came to me on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I was in my new studio space, Corlin Shaw design architecture now etched on the frosted glass door, reviewing fabric samples, when my assistant buzzed. A Ms. Evans is here to see you. She says it's personal. Margaret. I hadn't seen or spoken to her since the mediation. I almost said no. Then, I thought better of it. Send her in. She entered, diminished. The lavender silk was gone, replaced by a simple, expensive black sheath. She looked smaller, the armor of her poise cracked. The room felt charged with the ghost of all her past pronouncements. Coralyn, she said, not meeting my eye, looking at the samples, the blueprints, the evidence of a life thriving without her. Margaret, to what do I owe the pleasure? She wrung her hands, a gesture I had never seen from her. I came to say that I hope you're satisfied. You've taken my son's future. You've turned my family against me. Brandon and Chloe are in a one-bedroom in Queens, buried in debt. Harold barely speaks to me. Ethan he's a ghost. Are you happy now? I leaned back in my chair. No, Margaret, I'm not happy. What you did doesn't make people happy. It makes them safe. It makes them free. There's a difference. She finally looked at me, and to my shock, her eyes were bright with genuine, confused tears. It was for the family. She whispered again, the mantra that had justified every transgression. Why couldn't you see that? Why did you have to be so selfish? There it was, the core of her, in her mind. My crime was never the fraud, the theft, the betrayal. My crime was refusing to be consumed. I felt a sudden, unexpected pang of pity for this woman, trapped in the gilded prison of her own making. You keep using that word. Margaret. Family. I stood up, walking to the window overlooking the bustling street below. But families don't forge signatures. They don't plod in emails. They don't call their son's wife a financial pillar to be leveraged. What you were protecting wasn't a family. It was a brand. And you were willing to burn down my life to keep the logo shiny. I turned to face her. You asked if I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied that the bill with my name on it is finally, irrevocably, yours to pay. She had no retort. The script was empty. The levers of guilt and obligation no longer worked. She was just an old woman who had lost everything she valued because she never understood its true worth. She turned and left without another word. The door, clicking, softly shut behind her. I stood there for a long moment. Then, I walked to my desk. On it was a mock-up for my new company's branding. The logo was clean, modern, strong. Shaw. My name. My rules. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. FYI, just heard from a little bird. The Canellis quietly paid off the last of the vendor bills to avoid any more scandal. Wanted Brandon to sign a postnup. He refused. Chloe asked for a separation. The ice swan, it seems, has claimed its victims. P.S. The Vogue living editor I connected you with just emailed. She's obsessed with the Kyoto concept. Wants a feature. Call her. A second notification popped up. A news alert from a financial gossip site. Former Rising Star attorney Ethan Evans, recently departed from Sterling Cox, has taken a counsel position at a mid-sized firm in White Plains. A significant step down for the once promising litigator. I smiled. A real one this time. Small and private. I didn't feel joy at their suffering. I felt the absence of the weight they had placed on me. It was the feeling of open sky. I closed the news alert. I opened the email from the Vogue editor, her words glowing with enthusiasm. I typed a reply, confident, professional, outlining my vision. Outside, the rain had stopped, and a sharp, clean sunlight broke through the clouds, gleaming off the wet pavement. I finished the email and sat back, looking at my name on the glass door, reflected in the window. Corlin Shaw was back, and she was just getting started. The past was a closed book, a settled debt. The future was a blank page, and for the first time in years, I was the only one holding the pen.